Hello, everyone. We are so excited for today's conversation. We are joined by the DocuSign team, a beloved partner of Women in Sales, one of our newer partners as well. And we're super excited for today's conversation. This is such an important topic, something that's very near and dear to our heart as a community and me as a leader. Also, one thing up top here, as you're meeting our panelists today, you might recognize each and every one of them from the employee spotlight posts that we did on social media. So we thought that was pretty cool to actually bring the voices of the individuals who were on those social posts so that you could get to know them even better, more personally here. So up top here, my name is Alexine Mudawar. I am CEO of Women in Sales. We are a membership organization focused on helping women find and keep success within the field of sales. And also, we are very focused on making sure that women stay in their sales careers long term and ultimately see promotions into leadership. So again, we are partnered for this particular event and for the entire year with DocuSign. So we're going to do some panelist introductions. And Lacey, I'd love to go to you first to introduce DocuSign and also introduce yourself.
Great, thank you. It's my privilege to introduce DocuSign, and DocuSign is redefining how the world comes together and agrees, making agreements smarter, easier, and more trusted. And as part of an industry-leading product lineup, DocuSign offers e-signature, which is the world's #1 way to sign electronically and on practically any device from almost anywhere at any time. Today, there's over 1 million customers that are using DocuSign and over 1 billion users in 180 plus countries that use DocuSign's products and solutions to accelerate process of doing business and simplifying each other's lives. And to introduce myself, my name is Lacey No. I'm an enterprise account executive here at DocuSign within our financial service vertical. And I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Excited to be here.
Love it. Love having you here, Lacey. While the rest of our panelists are introducing themselves, please let us know who's out there in the audience. Introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining from so we can say hello to you as well. Let's go to you next, Sonia. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Sonia Castellano. I'm a technical customer success manager here at DocuSign, and life and home and work is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Ooh, love it. Some good locations. Okay. Yolanda, you are next.
My name is Yolanda Vandenberg. I've been with DocuSign for close to 6 years now. Currently, I am the director of the pre-sale solutions architecture team for our APJ region, and I'm joining you from Melbourne, Australia.
Love it. And it's also 3 a.m. Yolanda's time, so we're going to just set some good energy and love her way.
Yes.
Rose, Elizabeth, Rose, we're heading your way next.
Thanks, Alexine. Yes, my name is Elizabeth Carroll, but I generally go by Rose, which is my middle name. I am in Chicago, and I am a senior MDR in the financial services vertical here at DocuSign.
Love it. Love some Chi-Town representation. I am also in the Chi and love it here. And it's finally getting nice. So that's a win. As we go through today's conversation, we would love to take any of the audience questions if we have enough time. You will see on your screen, there's a Q&A tab. If you are in the audience and you have a question, please submit it in the Q&A tab so that we can take those questions towards the end of the conversation. And there's a chat tab. So again, we'd love to hear who you are, where you're joining from, and get to know each and every one of you too. But while we are waiting on some of those to happen, we're going to get started. And I think to contextualize today's conversation, a really natural starting point is to better understand where each of you got your start in sales. So I'm going to start this question with Rose, and then we will just popcorn around from there.
Sure. So I've been in sales for a while, retail sales pretty much, but I got my start in tech sales right at DocuSign. Before I joined at DocuSign, I was a part of the Rework training program, which is also a partner of Women in Sales. So shout out to Rework. But I got my start there, and they had an 8-week boot camp, which is generally targeted towards people that want to get their start in tech sales. And they were very instrumental and pivotal in my career trajectory. So I'm here because Rework kind of pushed me here. And this was the best decision that I could have made for my career.
Love it. We are big Rework fans over here too. Yolanda, do you want to go next? Tell us
Yeah.
where you got your start in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. I began my career in sales somewhat serendipitously. Initially, my interest lay in technology and solutions development, programming, professional services. But through my role, I actually found that I had quite a knack for understanding client needs and translating them into solutions that work. And it was quite a thrill to actually be on that side of the scale, getting customers excited about a product. And that's when I learned about the wonderful world of pre-sales. And once that happened, I was really hooked and I haven't looked back.
Amazing.
Love it. As for me, Sonia, I actually, before I made a pivot into software technology, 4 years ago, to be exact, this spring. My prior career in health and fitness for over a decade revolved around sales, everything sales, from being a sales advisor to being a personal trainer, where of course you certainly generate the opportunity to work with every client that comes to your roster. But what's so wonderful about now is having that background in sales has provided me with invaluable skills in communication, negotiation, understanding my customer team's needs here at DocuSign, all of these skills, which I apply daily in my role now.
I love it. And I'm going to go way back because arguably they always say we've sold our entire lives, right? So when I start reminiscing about the beginnings of my journey in sales, I'm reminded of a humble yet very profound beginning, which includes my family's farm. So coming up big from the South, I would wake up early. I'd help my family throw a bunch of fruits and vegetables on a truck and literally go set up shop on the side of the road and try to make some money. I learned money at a very young age, and arguably, like Sonia, the art of negotiation when customers would try to hustle a kid for a bushel of corn. My customers were a bit older, though, as you can imagine. Most clients that go stop by produce stands or truck stands with fruit and vegetables are older. And if you've ever sat down with your grandparents or even an elderly person, you would quickly realize they have the gift of gab and time, and a lot of time. So I learned to talk to just about anyone. And I believe that sales is really about just truly human connection. But fast forwarding a bit more into the professional arena, I earned my BBA in professional sales. And I started with what I thought, we should all go into a medical supply. Like that was my dream goal. So I did inside sales for a medical supply organization. And unfortunately, I was terminated from my first gig out of college, which I was devastated and thought, like imposter syndrome, I can't do this. I will never amount to anything. Oh my God, what am I going to do? But as luck would have it, not giving up, I found myself being welcomed with some remarkable organizations and found some amazing mentors that helped deepen my understanding of sales and business acumen. And now, nearly 2 decades later, here I'm with you all today and hoping to inspire and just build some connections with you all.
Love it. What a cool history too. Yeah, I love hearing these stories. I grew up in my mom's restaurant, so that's very near and dear to my heart too, Lacey, because I used to hang out by the register, and my first comp plan, I always talk about it, was Beanie Babies, and I hustled for the Beanie Babies big collection by the end. So I love those stories and those foundations that we all built. As we think about our topic today, so we're really going to dive into collaboration over competition. This is a highly sought after topic that's come up many, many times within the community. There's a lot to unravel here. There's a lot of historical context that we should definitely, get into in this conversation, and reminders for each and every one of us that are going to be really important and powerful. So as we move into today's conversation, let's talk about how celebrating the successes of other women within our own organizations can positively impact culture overall. Lacey, let's kick off with you, and then we'll kind of go around the group here.
Sure. Well, surprisingly, and I hope my makeup and my Botox lady is coming through here, but 20 years in a career, I'll have to admit that I bought into that stereotype that women were in constant competition with each other. While the dudes seemed to have this bro club thing down, they were all lifting each other up. I just felt women were very catty and we were all cutthroating one another. But it's funny how perceptions can really shift over time, whether that be you know, personal journey or what, but nonetheless, I'm learning and still growing from it. But there's a saying that recently has just poured all over me and stays with me, is the saying of girls compete with each other and women empower each other. So looking back at the start of my career, and again, 20 plus years back into corporate America, it was very clear that there was not enough seats at the top for women. So perhaps it was, you know, somewhat justified or more common for us to not be kind of creating a club or camaraderie amongst other females. But again, whether that's a personal journey or that our society has really evolved, I am so honored and thrilled to see and feel the change that's occurring with women. My sisters, we all are hyping one another up now. I feel it. I'm also doing that for the females in my organizations, and I'm confidently and proudly cheering on other people. So it's all about driving that sisterhood, showing respect for one another. We all have a lot to learn from each other, and by lifting one another up, we can build friends, allies, and networks that can truly be life-changing.
Beautifully stated.
Yeah.
So
Rose?
you. Yeah. What comes to mind?
Yeah, that's so many good takeaways from what Lacey said. And to piggyback on that, the bottom line is acknowledging and supporting each other. It just simply reinforces that we all have space to thrive. It's not about if I win, you lose, I'll, lose right along with. My goodness. I'm just a firm believer that when we genuinely celebrate the achievements, the promotions, the everyday progress of each other, we establish such a culture of what Lacey just mentioned, of sisterhood, where it's just encouragement, it's solidarity, and it's like, it's girl squad, it's girl goals, everything we talk about. There's room for all of us to thrive. Yeah.
Rose, what comes to mind for you as you think about the positive impacts of a culture when we're really celebrating the successes of other women within our teams?
I think I might be the youngest here in my career on this panel. And to be quite honest, I think what really comes to mind are all the women that came before me, is the representation of women that I've been able to see at DocuSign specifically. Like my first manager here, shout out to Melanie Johnson, but she was such an incredible leader, and she made me feel comfortable enough to really understand that we are here as a team. We collaborate with each other and we highlight each other. And seeing her as a woman just being the incredible leader that she was, the incredible salesperson that she is, having that positivity really allowed me to see that that's something that I can do, that's somebody that I can be. And I really am blessed to have so many women around me that I can look up to and lean on for support. I think that's another thing that comes to mind, is that I have a support system here. And if I know that I have a lot of questions in my head because I know we have a lot to get through, but the incredible just like impact of being around so many strong women that are successful in their careers, that are communicative, that are sharing their resources, that are really encouraging community. Those are the things that comes to mind when I think about the positive impact of the representation of women in the corporate space.
Love it. Very well said. Yolanda, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with what Rose said. For me, because I've always been in a very technical field, and there was a long time when there were no ladies in technical. Honestly, when I started working at DocuSign in Australia, it was the first time in my life I remember saying to my husband, like, oh my goodness, there are so many ladies at the office. It's like, I don't know how to do this. Like, it's weird for me. But as I started working with all these ladies, I realized that when you have a whole community of women that support each other, and it's all different roles, but we can celebrate each other's successes, and we build that culture of support and recognition. I think it's always very vital for an inclusive environment. But when we cheer for each other, we don't only just boost morale for everyone around us, but we also create role models within the organization for other ladies that are there. And it breaks down, for me in a technical field, it breaks down stereotypes, and it encourages more women to try and pursue and thrive into those careers that they might have thought was, very male dominant and stuff. So, and if you know that your achievements are going to be acknowledged and celebrated, it really makes you feel like, I think Lacey called it the sisterhood. It really feels good to have that kind of supportive environment.
Absolutely.
Wow.
The TLDR of all of these, I feel like, is nothing bad happens if we support one another. It's all net positive. So this is a great starting point and foundation for today's conversation as we continue through. We're taking a bit of a pivot here, but I think this is a really important building block of today's conversation, is thinking about, we're all in the career of sales. We know that we chose a career that inherently has competition as part of it. And we all have goals that we have to hit. We have metrics that we're aligned to. We have KPIs that we're looked at. It's a very competitive field in and of itself. That said, I think there is definitely room for healthy competition. And I think there is a level of toxic competition. So I would love to hear from each of you, whoever wants to start off this next question. As you think about differentiating between that healthy versus toxic competition, what comes to mind for you? How do you differentiate the two? Just love to dive into this a little bit more.
I don't mind going first.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Yolanda. And then
Go ahead.
I always think that healthy competition is the type of competition where everybody's encouraged to bring their best to the table. It's innovation, and it drives us to improve ourselves. And it's always that kind of happens and exists when we are focused on winning, but we're doing it through learning and mutual growth. But on the other hand, the toxic competition arises when people have the desire to win, and that desire supersedes any kind of, relationship boundaries, respect for others, team cohesion. And it usually looks in the form, for me, I see it as, the undercutting, the misinformation between teams. And when certain people have that, we have to do this at an all costs to everybody attitude, and it harms people's, the team spirit and the whole morale. So as soon as something is not collaborative, where people are focused on learning and really, trying to support one another, it can get quite toxic.
Yeah, that's so spot on, Yolanda. As I was processing and thinking about this question over the time we're preparing for this, the way I look at it is, healthy competition is like a fair game of chess where we're both strategizing to win. Whereas toxic competition is like playing Monopoly with someone who thinks flipping the board is a legitimate strategy to win the game. It's a hot mess. It is an absolute mess. And at the end of the day, it takes far more from the game and the entire process than anything. So.
Very well said.
Rose, we want to go, or?
I want to say a quick snippet. Sonia, that was perfect. Because I love board games, so I felt that in my spirit. But I think the big difference that you can immediately tell when it's healthy versus toxic is how it makes you feel. If it's a healthy competition, then you're motivated, you're inspired, you've got energy. And if it's toxic, then you feel bad about yourself. You feel negatively about yourself, about your work, about the team, and it's harmful, like Yolanda said. So I think that's a big way for you to really reflect on what you're doing and how you're doing it, and if the competition that you're facing at work is a good thing or if it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I do. I think we have to read ourselves, Rose, and some things like that just go sometimes underlooked or overlooked, that we just don't read our own emotions. So I think that's spot on. Healthy competition for me, I'm going to take this to a compensation alignment. Obviously, when you have sales teams that have clear defined swim lanes where our responsibilities and our target accounts are extremely differentiated, it's going to avoid overlap. But compensation plans designed to incentivize that collaboration is where it's at. When you have some overlapping commissions, say maybe with people that are on your team that are all selling, and remember, I'm in an enterprise, so we have much bigger teams. We have our MDR teammates, our ECS teammates, our co-primes, our solution consultants, our account managers. When you have those overlapping in compensation, I think that breeds the teamwork and joint opportunities. And at DocuSign, I'm really proud to say we've evolved. It wasn't quite like that when I started at DocuSign, but with them always taking our feedback and hearing from the sales teams, they have evolved where they have a compensation structure that is designed to promote that partnership between the sales teams with all the different modalities and KPIs that each different role comes with. So I am very honored to be a part of an organization like that promotes that collective growth versus that cutthroat individualism that we have seen at other companies, right? And alternatively, toxic competition that occurs, in my opinion, when swim lanes are blurred. That leads to conflicts and over customers' ownership, account control. I've been in organizations where it's kind of free for all. Everyone's after the same accounts, same blood. That does nobody any good, and it creates toxic competition. But kind of going back, looking out for the compensation plans, it could essentially pit against one another, where, like Yolanda said, that sometimes it comes at the expense of hurting others. And that just screams toxic culture. Other things, again, that you can look for to identify if you're in a toxic environment is simple things like, hey, am I leaving colleagues off of emails that they probably should be on? Am I backstabbing or back-talking negative about folks? And I'm not going to say it to their face, like I'm trying to diminish someone's brand. And then also weak leadership. I am going to put this a bit back on leadership to say, if they fail to address these toxic cultures, it's going to be a downfall for their whole organization. That's going to, create resentment. It's going to create burnout, and ultimately it's going to make your teams leave the company. As soon as they find a better gig, they're out. So designing sales incentives and organization structures that align individually, but yet with a broader team's goals in mind, I think is the best place to find that healthy competition.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, Lacey, I was going to say the same thing. Like, we can be accountable for ourselves, but it's a little bit bigger than us. So we have to hold our teammates accountable. We have to hold our management accountable, and have these tough conversations. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I feel like Lacey kind of segued us really nicely into where we're headed next, which is how can we as women can better support and elevate one another while still working towards our own individual goals. Because I think that's one of the big pieces that we don't think about, is as much as we feel like there's this pie, and when you sell a deal, you take a slice of this pie, but that number is kind of fictitious. Like, whatever we sell is what we sell, and that pie can be as big as we want it to. So would love to hear from each of you as far as you think about how we as women can better support and elevate each other, knowing that we do have our own quota, we do have our own KPIs and our own goals that we're all working towards. And that's just part of the job in and of itself. So Sonia, I'd love to kick off with you for this one first.
Yeah, sure. Goodness, this is so good. I'm getting as many takeaways as I'm thinking about, what do I have to share here? When it comes to this question, and I'm a big sister, I have a younger sister that's of course, we're both grown-ups, but she's still my little sister, and I'm like that with a lot of my girlfriends too. And goodness, guys, I have never had a time in my life where, when I've empowered someone else or highlighted their achievements in the midst of doing my own journey, where it hasn't actually enhanced my brilliance and made me better in the process. Like, every single time, the more you give, the more you get back. And so when I think about how we can better support and elevate each other, it comes down to being genuine allies making sure if I'm pulled in, you're pulled in too. If I'm winning, you're winning too. You're brought to the table too. And also season those opportunities to spotlight one another positively. You know, Lacey or someone mentioned about just speaking up and saying things, you know, good things about each other, not behind. If you want to talk about me behind my back, say good things, mention great things when when I'm not in the room. And I've done that for my girls, for my sisters. And I kid you not, lifting up others is a ladder to higher ground for yourself. Just as a ladder gets us to where we need to go physically, lifting others propels us in various aspects of our life, whether it be personal growth, success, and our own internal fulfillment. It matters lifting others up. So don't mean to be so wordy there, but that one's just strong for me. So.
Sonia, I'm going to come back in this event recording later and grab some of your one-liners. These are so good. I'm like trying to type them.
What Sonia said reminded me of something I heard a few weeks ago. Someone said, you can do good for others and still do well. And I love that. Like you can really be good to someone else and still do well for yourself. It never has to be at the cost of someone else or at the cost of a relationship or any of that. And for how to support women better, as a leader, I believe in creating mentorship opportunities, sharing resources. I often do a lot of heavy lifting and then I let my team be the face of that. I feel like once you allowing other people and creating a platform for them to shine, you're not just supporting them. It also has that amount of feel good for yourself when you see someone else thrive with your leadership or your assistance. It's always, it's like you win when they win. And, it's like, I always also say, like, if you're going to support someone in their career, you need to really listen to them. And often you need to give them constructive feedback when they need it. And stepping in to let them lead sometimes. And exactly what Sonia also said, like have someone's back. It's always about, all these little sayings and cliches that stick in my mind. But that one that said was, who has your back when you're not in the room? Doing that for one another and standing up is an amazing thing. And if we can have that kind of culture, women will be so empowered, and the imposter syndromes that we always suffer with will be non-existent, and we will all believe in our greatness. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, so good.
I don't even know how to speak after these 2 days. Just covered it all. But one thing I will say is that my light does not dim yours. We can both shine together.
Rose.
And I think it really takes, because I have been a proponent of what Lacey said, like not including on emails and not being as communicative as much. And it took another woman on the team to say, hey, this needs to happen so that we can grow, so that we can be better and do better. So in those moments, and it took me just now realizing, like, maybe I was presenting myself as the competition when I really didn't intend to. So I think it's being open to the idea that we can all win and we can all grow, and we can all be successful. It's not either or, it's and. So you ladies are so smart.
As are you. To be
seriously.
So many great nuggets and have already lived through so many experiences, Rose. So I love that. I think I would add here, just like you all said, lift each other up, knowing who's got your back, and just shining a bright light for other people that may not have had that path without you. I think are so important. But also, when I was reflecting on this question, find your tribe, find your people. Goodness. I personally have my tribe of mamas and my friends from like elementary school that I stay on a text thread with that are literally loving on me and sending me notes like prior to coming in here. But find those people at work. Identify those women in your professional network who share your same values and are going to lift you up and have your back when you're not in the room. I love that. Whether that's a Slack channel, a mentorship program, a peer group like Women in Sales, but make that time to regularly connect with those people. that are going to support you. But also recognize not everybody is your people, right? And that's okay. Don't spend your energy there, but focus on the energy, on those relationships that are going to energize you and you can flourish. Just to give you an example, here at DocuSign, I'm a professional network. I'm part of a Slack community that are just 7 other female enterprise sales reps within our financial service organization. These are my peers, but they're also my people. We use this space to be vulnerable with each other. We remind each other of important tasks, because who likes to be the one on the naughty list for things? We just say, hey, don't forget this certification's coming up. Like we're watching out for one another. We celebrate each other. We discuss challenges maybe that we're having with clients, ask if anybody has experienced that before, what would you do? But this regular connection, this regular thread into my professional life is super invaluable to me. And I hope those women know that I have their back outside of that group, and I trust that they have mine too.
This is such a good conversation. I knew this event was going to be good. I knew you were going to drop some heat. I'm loving this. We are going to answer next probably the toughest question, I think, of our conversation today. But it's a very real question. And I think all of us, if we're being honest, have been in this space before. I will share a personal example to contextualize. But basically where we're headed next is we're going to talk about, if you start to feel resentment towards other women on your team, what are some steps you can take? And how do you identify the root cause of this resentment? And so one example that I had, so I was on a sales team years ago, and there were only 2 women on the team at the time. And it was so strange because we're with all these guys. They all get along, much like we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation. And there was this animosity that formed, and I wasn't sure like where it came from. And I don't think she was either. And so one day we messaged each other on Slack or whatever the communication channel was. And we're like, we should go to lunch. Let's go to lunch and just see, like, get to know each other better, basically. And I think we both sensed that there was this weirdness. And so we went to lunch, had the loveliest time. We went, had like salmon. I remember what we ate. We had salmon together. And it was this great conversation. And then we kind of hashed it out. I was like, do you ever feel like we kind of get pitted against each other? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I don't know if this has ever come up in your one-on-one. I was like, our manager actually says to me in our one-on-ones, don't you want to beat her? Don't you want to be the number 1 girl on the team? And she was like, he says that to me in my one-on-ones. And we were like, we don't dislike each other. We're getting pitted against each other. This is like strategic. And so once we realized that, it was this epiphany, and we just totally fought back against it. So we ended up like working really closely together. We celebrate each other's successes, and we ended up being really close friends, and we're still friends to this day. And so it's so interesting when you kind of trace the roots back and you realize this had probably absolutely nothing to do with us as individuals. This was something that was brought on upon us and really against both of our wishes. And so all of that to take us into this question, just to kind of lower the barrier of talking about these things, because there is some shame behind it and some concern about sharing these stories. So again, I'll rehash the question. If you start to feel resentment towards other women on your team, what are some of those steps you can take, and how do you identify the root of that resentment? Rose, can we start with you for this question?
Yes. I was hoping you wouldn't pick me first. Because I'm really trying to reflect on moments where I felt like that, or moments that I've seen that within my team. Because I started with a large group of women on my team, and they were heavy hitters. They did the job, and I was motivated, and I was inspired, and I wanted to learn from them. And sometimes I felt like maybe I could be doing a little bit more, or maybe they're not responding to my Slack messages because I'm not being specific enough, or there was a lot of miscommunication, and that led to me feeling that maybe they don't like me. She doesn't like me. Maybe I don't like her. I don't know. I think that we kind of wrap our minds around like camaraderie and wanting to be, well, especially myself coming into DocuSign early. I've only been here for 2.5 years, and just experiencing what tech sales has been like for me. I think it was hard for me to really wrap my mind around my role, essentially. And I saw a lot of advice from my peers, and they were very open, very communicative. And I think it kind of starts with that when it comes to the resentment, is being as communicative as possible, being open to the idea of collaborating. But to be quite honest, I haven't experienced that too much here at DocuSign. I could probably have something more to say after I hear some more stories, but I don't really. At DocuSign, I have not experienced that just yet, and I am grateful and blessed to be a part of a culture that I have not had to.
And hopefully you won't, Rose. I can speak for the financial service organization that that's not the culture that we breed here. So I'm glad you haven't experienced that. And Alexine, I'm sorry that you've gone through that. What a horrible experience. And I hope that if there are leaders on this call, you identify that it stems from some toxic leadership, and we should not do that to people, right? Like, we want to make our team thrive. And I imagine sales leaders all want your entire team to be successful if your compensation plan is designed like that. That kind of goes back to my thought before. If you've got a really healthy and strong organization structure that aligns well with compensation, I think that alone will have created that without like pitting two females against one another. But nonetheless, I'm sorry that you've gone through that. I haven't quite experienced anything like that either, but there are some that I have felt some resentment. And as I first suggest, like, pause, breathe, reflect, don't act on emotion, like just take it all in. But note that we are emotional creatures, and it could be something that's triggering you with some sensitivity. Give yourself just space to think. Could it be jealousy? Like, we get jealous, like that's totally fine. But could you also be being treated unfairly? But I think you just need time to reflect and think about it. And then I would say then kind of go into, is this relationship worth saving? I'm a firm believer. In my early career, I wanted everyone to like me. That was a people-pleasing person. And as I got older and my time shrunk, I totally okay with not burning those extra calories, worrying about, relationships that are not going to allow me to thrive in the future. So I just say, like, everyone should just be a decent human being. And if you are, and you feel good about laying your head down on your pillow at night, that's on you. But for the ones that are worth saving, relentlessly pursue it. Make a plan, execute, talk to your leadership team on how you can repair it, talk to your friends internally, externally, and go and mend a relationship or figure it out, like Alexine, that you did. Like, go grab lunch, just be vulnerable. I feel like we all have this like wall up in our professional careers, and it's okay to say, like, wow, like, girl, you're killing it. I might be jealous, but tell me, what are you doing? How do I find success like you? What are you doing so different? And I really think that might help, bring down the walls.
Yeah, that's so good, Lacey. Kind of breaking down what you said, because it's so many layers of it as you're sharing this. And for me, like you, Rose and Lacey, I have so many healthy relationships with my female colleagues, and I'm more on the technical side than the sales side, as Rose and Lacey. And I kid you not, when we're working towards one of our customer issues, it's all of our issue to find out what's going on there. And I can't tell you how many times I've pinged someone or they pinged me, and I'll put something aside to, oh yeah, let me help you look into that. However, of course, there's been moments where resentment happens. And for me personally, if I find myself resenting or side-eyeing another woman, I tend to look inward first.
Mhm.
And if it's my own insecurities, if it's my own biases, then it's my own issue to address in the mirror of my own soul. Straight up, it just really is, because a lot of times resentment has nothing to do with the other person. It's about you, and you've got to be mature enough and insightful enough to own that. On the other hand, if someone's being hurtful or harmful, and like Lacey mentioned, that relationship matters, you've got to partner together, you work together, then I'll take an opportunity to initiate a respectful conversation with the individual. And it gives us both the opportunity to learn from that scenario. Because guys, let's face it, life's too short for office drama, for work drama. It's got to be about building bridges instead of burning them. And that's not always possible with everyone, but the best that you can be at peace with others as well as yourself. So is how I felt.
Yeah. I don't have too much to add, because what I was also thinking is, it's always when an emotion like resentment or even jealousy comes up, there's always the emotion under your initial feeling. And it's always good to go internally, see, is it coming from a personal insecurity? Was this because of a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, or is there an issue in your team dynamic, like a boss that maybe pushes one and not the other, whatever that is? And then to just say what Rose mentioned as well, the only way to go through that is open, honest communication. Discussing your feelings in a constructive way sometimes lead into breakthroughs with relationships, like, Alexine, like you said, when you took the lady to lunch. So, and sometimes if you're not able to address it that straight on, because sometimes, you're still working through your own emotions, especially if it's something that's very personal to you, speak to a trusted colleague, speak to a mentor, get some other perspectives until you can find the root cause and then work on that. I sometimes feel like it's a negative emotion, but when it comes up, it's still an opportunity for you, because you're uncovering something that you can work on, and you will be better after this, and you'll manage it better, and you'll help someone when they go through that, because everybody's going to go through it, right? So now those are just the thoughts I have. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, based on what everyone shared, it's a human experience. It's something that we all face. We face resentment, we face jealousy, we face these things. Yeah. And the greatest thing that we can do, first and foremost, is to look inward first, see what's going on inside of us, see if this is, to your point, I can't remember who raised it, if it was you, Sonia. Is there something in my history or my own experiences that is creating these feelings towards this individual or towards this situation? And sometimes it is internal, sometimes it is external, and there's a change in culture needed, or a change in organization or leadership potentially. So there is, all these situations are, of course, one-off, but it's so powerful to hear each of your perspectives. I know this is just a tough question, but it's something that we all have faced, and it's important for us to talk about these things and kind of unshroud some of the fear of that as well. So we actually received a Q&A question. I think we're missing your actual last name, Katie, but I have Katie, unless both your first and last name are the same. But this question, ironically, kind of takes us right into where we were headed next in our conversation. I'm going to post it on the stage. And basically what Katie asks is, how do you start a women's group like you described, where you work across departments and agree to have that space away from the day-to-day? Is it an ERG? Is it in another format? I actually think, and why that relates to where we're headed next in our conversation, is we're going to talk about what some of the standout moments of collaborating with extended teammates and colleagues look like. So Lacey, I think you'd actually be a perfect person to start this conversation as someone who leads an internal group for DocuSign. So I'm curious, how did you, I guess kind of riffing off Katie's question, how did you get consensus across these different departments internally? How did you get participation going? And anything you'd be willing to share on this topic?
Yeah, well, we're very fortunate at DocuSign that we have these already formed employee resource groups, so ERGs. But there's evolution of that, right? I think we started initially with a women's ERG that's all encompassing females. And then we're starting to create chapters or branches, if you will, under that bigger hierarchy that spawn off into women in sales, or women in product, or women in solution engineering, where we can find kind of more of a micro culture of people and community. So I think once you just get enough people that are, building those communities, it just organically happens. But very fortunate that DocuSign provides that platform of the ERG culture to start that. Now, some of the things I mentioned about building a Slack channel with other females, I just took it upon myself and just said, hey, we were holding like quarterly calls or monthly calls. And then we just got where we loved it so much just to collaborate and share ideas that we created a Slack channel that, and it just took off. That I would send a question just like, hey, like, anybody know how to do this? Instead of asking my team, I would also ask this particular group. And it just created an environment where other people started asking similar questions, and we're all just feeding and learning from one another. And then we share when we have troubles and ask for feedback and guidance, or share wins or reminders. So I think you can do both. It could be something as super formal as a company ERG, or it could be informal, and you're creating your own tribe and your own people, and you're doing it, and people are collaborating just organically. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. For this next question, in terms of this panel today, what's really cool about this group is all of you are serving different roles in different parts of the organization, but you're still working together. You still have these relationships built. So Sonia, would love to go to you next in terms of, as you think about some of those moments when you've collaborated with other folks on your team who are in other groups within the organization, what are some of those great moments? What's come about from those?
Oh, goodness. So one of my favorite times ever, and I'm crossing my fingers that you think this too, Rose, because she was on this trip with me. We're both part of the BOLD ERG at DocuSign, which is our Black organization for leadership and development. And in November of last year, we got the opportunity to go to Afrotech, where we collaborated across the board with our recruiting professionals in DocuSign, some sales professionals and other tech. And guys, it was the most phenomenal, amazing, awesome. Didn't stop talking about it for weeks when I got home, because so many of us got to not only meet each other in real life, but partner. And, Rosa, who, behind the scenes worked to do this, she became one of my most favored humans at DocuSign, just working alongside her and seeing what she does, and talent and recruiting and bringing teams together. So when I think of standout moments, it's what we're talking about, where you come from your vantage point, your roles, your specific professional role to meet the goal in mind. And that goal was to connect with fellow professionals, with students that are graduating in technology and we're looking at DocuSign roles that were open at that time. And it was just equally humbling and invigorating to be surrounded by so many knowledgeable and impactful colleagues that are just all doing the work we love here at DocuSign. So yeah.
Oh, love that. Love the shout out to Rosa. She is amazing. You have to find a way to meet her. She's amazing. I get to work with her, and I'm selfishly get to talk to her like every other week, and I really love it. So thank you. Any other thoughts? We did have another really interesting Q&A question come through that I might take us to next, but other thoughts in terms of some of those standout moments from any of you in terms of collaborating with those extended teammates and departments and colleagues internally?
Yeah, I would just say, go ahead, Rose.
No, I was just going to say, like, being a part of an ERG is really, it's one of those ways that you can just collaborate and get in contact with and network with people and build some really solid relationships. Like Sonia and I, we have a ball every time we are together. When she comes to Chicago, fingers crossed she'll be here in June. When we were in Afrotech, meeting different people within the Women in Sales group, Haley, who's an RVP here, she's down in Chicago. I think being a part of these spaces allows for that relationship to be built. And I'm grateful to be a part of those. So that's all I wanted to say.
And if you don't have, if your company doesn't have official ERGs, lean on communities like Alexine's and this Women in Sales, and even create one for your company. Just rinse and repeat her model and take her content into your organizations, because once you build community, that's where the magic happens.
Yes.
But I'd also say, when you're collaborating with folks and when you see out those standout moments, give the shout outs where they're due. If you notice someone's pulling some extra weight, take an opportunity to reach out to their manager, their manager's manager, and just let them know how awesome they're doing and how valuable they are to your team. Within enterprise sales, I get the great opportunity to rub elbows a bit more probably with our executive team, but I am not shy to take some of my renewals managers or my success managers and let their top leadership know, hey, this female is doing amazing work. Like, she will be at your table in the near future because she's so awesome. Like, I say it so much, that usually when I see these executives again, they're like, how's Sarah doing for you again, Lacey? Like, it's still a great relationship. They know her name because I am set myself a goal to make sure her name is in the spotlight.
Yes.
Because so incredibly hard. So when you do have those people lean in and just nurture their spotlight, again, there's enough room for all of us. And as we kind of said earlier, my light's not dimmed by shining it brighter for my peers who really deserve the recognition.
Yeah.
Well said. We just have 10 minutes left, which is, like I said, when we were backstage, I was like, the time is just going to fly. It's going to go by. We're going to blink and it's going to be over. So we're going to take a question from the Q&A now. We answered a little bit of it with this question, but just be curious if there's anything else we can layer on top of this. Chi asks about finding your group of people. How can you go about doing this? What are your recommendations? How do you build a long-term relationship with people who align with you? Basically, I think the root of this is how do we identify those folks who might resonate with us and might be our people? And I would take it even a step further, especially if you're new to the organization or maybe in like a lower IC role and you're not so comfortable yet, maybe going to bigger events or doing things. What advice would you all have, or what experiences have you had in finding some of those people internally? I know we talked about ERGs, but are there other ways that you all have deployed as well?
Lean on your team, lean on your support system. Do not be afraid to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. And continue to be inquisitive and a student to the game. I think if you keep those with you, then doors will open and people will point you in the right direction. Especially as a BDR, I think it said that Chi was. That's one of the main things that we're looking for is the right point of contact. Who should I be talking to? Who's the person that's going to make the decisions? Who's leading this department? So if you're asking the right questions, you will find the right people.
Yeah,
I would
to piggyback
say
on that. Oh, yes, go ahead,
That's
Yolanda.
okay. No, I would just say that sometimes when you're starting in an organization, you might have a preconceived idea of the people that you need to align with because that's going to help you. And usually you would pick them in your own team, in your own field. But I think that's a mistake. The times when you're having conversations and relationships with other people that do a total different job to you in DocuSign, you will learn so much. Those relationships, like no conversation is not worth having if you're meeting someone new and when you're learning from someone else. Sometimes we kind of silo ourselves and we almost hold ourselves back on the type of organic growth we can have in our relationships and our knowledge in an organization because you're kind of sticking to who you think your people should be. And sometimes those just aren't the ones that come through for you. So that's the advice I would give. I've made this mistake and I've rectified it in the last while, and it's really working much better for everybody, and I'm much happier. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would add to just when you're looking for those people, just be authentic and genuine. If you are attracted to someone, I don't mean like the weird attraction, but like if you know, like you just jive with someone emotionally and you want to be like them, go and just be genuine, flatter that person because everybody loves to be flattered and just say, hey, like, I see you've got something really incredible going on. I want to know about your light. Like, do you mind if I find 15 minutes? Like, I'll buy you coffee. I'll take you to lunch like Alexine did. And just go and ask some questions. It doesn't have to be something so formal. In my mid-career, I used to get matched up with mentors and it just felt real staunchy and weird. And I didn't receive any benefit from those things until I organically did it myself. And that's really just identifying like, who do I aspire to be and what does that look like? And then I just went out and sought those relationships myself and just bid them compliments and said like, you're crushing it, or you're doing something incredible. Or my manager has said like, hey, you should go and chat with so-and-so. Like I'll follow through with those and just organically find them. But just be open-minded because sometimes you're going to think that person might be someone you aspire to be. When you get in deep conversation, it might not be. So it's okay to cut that loose and say like, I learned something from that. That's not the person I want to be. And if it is, like, continue to evolve it. I always say, I wish I'd have learned this early on, is treat your network like prospects. you want to keep them warm. You don't want to go to them every time you need a sell or have a question, but sometimes just go to them and say like, hey, I was thinking about you. This might be a client. I know a client that you share. I saw them in the news, or congrats on your kid's birthday or graduation. Taking it and keeping them warm. And then when you do have to come back around and you have a question or ask, they're going to remember that, that you just always don't come with your hands out, like asking for something. So, yeah. Sonia, do you have something there?
No, I actually do not. I am sitting here like gleaning from everything these ladies just said. It's well said, and heck yeah, love it.
Yeah. I would add too, even though you're in sales, I know it's natural just to look in sales and you want to find your sales buddies. That is going to happen organically. We are all chatty. We love finding each other. Look at the other parts of the org. Some of my closest girlfriends came from engineering and product, who at the time absolutely hated sales. And sometimes you got to nudge yourself in there a little bit. Like, these are people that weren't going to proactively like come and find me. They are my closest friends to this day. And I did some, weird things to try to get to know them. I did some extra Slack messages. I did some drop-bys in the engineering department. You never know where those relationships will lead and what you'll learn from having people in your circle that are in all different roles internally. Like, the way that they think about challenges is different. The way that they approach problems is different. And so look outside of just sales. There are some good people out there, even if they're not in sales. And with that, we have exactly 4 minutes left. So we're going to do one rapid fire question, and then we are going to close out. So if each of you, again, we're going to have to do rapid fire, but if each of you had just one singular piece of advice for women in our community and in the greater sales community who are just starting their careers in sales, what would that one piece of advice be?
I'll go first. Get involved and volunteer. Even in organizations like Alexine's, I'm sure they are looking for people that want to support or volunteer to drive their community and drive their mission. You're going to meet so many incredible relationships when you have your passion project that's outside of your day job.
Yeah,
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. One piece of advice that I have is, do not be afraid to use your voice. Raise your hand, get active, get involved, ask questions, be inquisitive, just speak up.
yeah, awesome. I'll go next. And actually, it's a bit of a piggyback of what you were referring to in the last statement, Lacey. Be yourself. Sometimes we hear this when it's brought up about giving advice to someone and we think, okay, give me something else. I've heard that, but here goes. Regardless of who you look up to, of who you've learned from, your greatest asset will always be in being yourself. No one has my goofy smile like me. No one has my weird, quirky personality. I don't want to be anyone else. And I've learned that the hard way in life. So when you're true to yourself, you end up radiating your own unique energy that will attract you to the right people and the right opportunities every single time. Be yourself. That's it. Yeah.
That's great advice. I would also say be curious and always learn. Sales always evolves, and learning is a key part of that. What the ladies already said, networking, relationships, but also, believe in yourself as well. You should never underestimate the value you can have and the impact you can make in any kind of thing that you put your mind to.
Yeah.
What a great conversation. Oh, I'm feeling all the good feels. Okay. This is amazing. All four of you are incredible. I already had the utmost respect. It's just taken it to another level. So thank you all for being panelists for us. For anybody that's in the audience with us, I dropped 2 links into the chat. The first one is a link to our Women in Sales Slack community. If you want access to upcoming events, webinars, in-person opportunities, giveaways for swag, all of it goes down in the Slack community. Everybody in the Slack community gets first priority, so make sure you're in there. And we also have a LinkedIn page where we will cross-post any upcoming events and updates, things of that nature. So check that out too. And then on the DocuSign side, they are hiring. They're going to keep hiring, and it's never going to stop. So I have dropped in a link from the DocuSign team to join their talent community. And this is really important because this allows your name to be an option for future roles, because they may not have every single role posted today. They may open some tomorrow. So this is a way for you to get your information right in front of their recruiting team, and they will know that you came from Women in Sales, so you get a little extra special treatment. So thank you, DocuSign, for co-sponsoring this event with us and for being an incredible partner. Thank you, Lacey, Rose, Sonia, Yolanda, for being part of this conversation. And thank you all for attending this event today and discussing collaboration over competition, because there's room for all of us at the top.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you, Alexine.
Alexine.
This has been amazing.
ladies.
Thanks,
Such a
ladies.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Take care.
Everyone.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.